how can we know that somebody is in heaven? Well, there's actually quite a few ways that we can know. One of the ways that the church uses to figure it out is if a person's been dead for a couple of hundred years, just dig up their bodies and let's take a close look and let's see. Did you know that of the 10,000 canonized saints, 250 of them have actually been exhumed, meaning that their bodies were taken out of their graves, out of their tombs, and their bodies were examined. And these saints, their bodies were incorrupt. They had been in the grave, they had been dead for years and years and years, even decades, even centuries in some cases. And when their caskets were taken out of the ground and those lids were popped open, guess what they found? Their bodies were completely incorrupt. And not only that, all of them emitted a sweet smell of flowers. That does not happen for someone that's been dead for decades or even centuries, but it does happen with people who were eventually canonized as saints. I actually did an entire video on my YouTube channel explaining the saint canonization process. Go over there right now, guys. It's live.
So I found this video to be interesting because it continuously demonstrates how Christianity is just a man-made and made-up religion. So what you have in the Catholic version of Christianity is the fact that over 250 of these so-called saints that have been exhumed, that their bodies have not deteriorated in the same manner that you would expect a person's body to deteriorate. As a matter of fact, one of the oldest ones is a young lady who was supposedly died in 177 AD, and when they dug her up in the 1500s, her body was found to be much like how a person's body would be if they had just passed away. But the Pope and the Catholic Church has went on to prove that this incorruptible body to which the gentleman in this video was talking about is not a miracle. The Pope has called it a miracle of his own church. That's what's funny to me. You got a Catholic claiming that this is proof that these saints are in heaven, yet the Pope, who is the vicar of Christ, that y'all give him that title, y'all claim that he is the current embodiment of Jesus, the Spirit of Jesus on earth, is saying that this is not a miracle. He is also saying that this is not necessary in order for sainthood. And so the Vatican scientists have also went out and looked at each one of these locations and has said that there are very subtle differences in the temperature, the moisture, and the construction that these saints' bodies has been found in, and that those very slight differences is what is creating this situation that is separate, that is within the same graveyard. So it's not like they're comparing this graveyard and another graveyard 10 miles away. They're comparing burials in the same space, but those very subtle differences is what's creating this situation. And so your own church doctrine is saying that this is not proof of any miracle, which then that creator goes on to say, this is how you know if these saints are in heaven. There is absolutely zero aspects of your Bible that would suggest that. You know, most instances you have like 1 Corinthians when they're talking about the corruptible body got to put on the incorruptible. This is something that if you grew up in a Baptist church, you heard this over and over again. Trust me, you heard it over and over again about putting on the incorruptible. You have others who look at other verses where it talks about the incorruptible and the corruptible seed, or when these bodies are raised, after they're raised to glory, that they are then incorruptible because now the new body is the everlasting body. So this creator is just demonstrating how they use this information to jump out at you. And I saw one Facebook post where the girl was like, and where's the Protestants or anybody else who got that? You don't even have to really go look deep for that one. Abraham Lincoln. 36 years after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, his family and some other friends, 23 people in total, had his body exhumed. And when they opened the casket briefly, he still looked the same 36 years later. And what's interesting about the Lincoln situation is that multiple times his body had been exhumed before then. It was only then that his body was finally laid to rest. So it's been that body been getting fresh air few times, fresh air, which helps in the decaying process. But 36 years later, what's the situation around it? Who knows? But his body still looked the same according to the 23 people who was there to verify that it was Lincoln, so that they wouldn't be putting the wrong body in there. Now, there's one other thing that I want to talk about concerning this, but there are certain aspects that you can have in your body that could help a person's body to look better longer, and many of these saints demonstrated this one thing, and Abraham Lincoln demonstrates this thing, and that is to be low in moisture, low water, to also have a high vegetable nut diet and pine needle diet, but also to not have fat. A person's body that does not have a lot of fat on it, it will not decompose as quickly as a person who passes away and their body is composed of a lot of fat. Don't ask me to get into the science of it, but in my research of it, I found that there is a process for monks that possibly go through that when they know they're nearing the end of their life. And to me, this is a little crazy, weird, and cruel, but they do it to themselves. It's called, and I'm gonna say it wrong, it's soku shinbutsu. Okay, I just trash that all up. But anyway, SOKUSHINBUTSU. But it's a 3-week process where they change their diet to that they're only drinking tea, and they're a certain tea, and they eating nuts and pine needles, and not the long pine needles, don't think of it in that terms, but they're eating this specific diet that reduces muscle mass, reduces water, and reduces fat in their body as a pre-mummification process. Now, that diet is very important and is the main thing that keeps their body into like a natural form of mummification, so that there's no embalming that's going on. So depending upon a person's diet, it could determine the rate of deterioration when they pass along and their body is left into the grave. So then the person goes through fasting and whatnot to get themselves right, and then they literally bury the person alive, and the person spends that time frame while buried alive to meditate on their last remaining, and it said days, not hours, not minutes, but last remaining days they spend in the box under the ground meditating. And then some of them have been dug up and placed in shrines, and of course they don't look anything like they used to look back in the day, but they look like Egyptian mummies. So it's a self-internalized Egyptian mummification. But what it demonstrates is that certain conditions can be in place that can cause the body to not deteriorate in the same way. So as far as these bodies that they have laying in state that you can see, and most of them, they've had some plastic wax masked over them, or they've done some alterations to these bodies. And I remember being in Europe and have seen some of them, and there are some that you can see in America. And I didn't think nothing of it at the time, but I just figured they just doing some work. They worked on them, and some of them they have worked on the body or put clay mask or wax on them to make them look more vibrant. So I don't even trust it all the way, but there is some level of decay that still has happened and has occurred with each one of those bodies. But to suggest that this is proof that they're in heaven because of that is as much as me saying that because the pack of cigarettes that my grandfather left before he died, and I still got that pack of cigarettes and they still here, then that means my grandfather's in heaven because these cigarettes hadn't gotten old or nothing like that. That makes no sense, right? That wouldn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. I don't have a pack of cigarettes from my grandfather, but it will be the same thing, is that if I found anything that's still here. But that makes absolutely no sense. So y'all have a great day, and remember always, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.